What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Another video means another dopamine high because of the buy set and the feel something. And today we're back at it with another review. And for today's review, we're revisiting a franchise we haven't looked at in about 4 months, and that is the Predator franchise. And before anyone else says, I want to call myself out for trying to build this up like you haven't seen the title or the thumbnail of the video. I'm truly a genius beyond common comprehension here, because the guys at NECA have blessed us with another figure to look at, and that is the Feral Predator from Prey. I'm not surprised that this figure was announced shortly after the release of the movie, and obviously the figure is now here, so I'm here to show you what this figure is all about. And at any point during or after the video you do realize you want to pick up this figure for yourself, you can get them for the base price of $36.99 off of Target, and then after that the prices go up: $39.99 for Entertainment Earth, $41.99 for the Big Bad Toy Store, and for a whopping $62.50 off of Amazon. Goddamn those scalpers. And I will admit, this time I did pick up my figure off of the Big Bad Toy Store, so I did pay that $41.99. But if you are lucky enough to find them in Target for that nice base price of $36.99, grab them when you can, because I am actually having trouble seeing these guys in Target. So these guys are going off the shelves really quick, or Target is just doing really bad at, stocking their shelves like most Targets do now. But besides that, this is a very much anticipated figure for me. After I saw Prey, I really wanted NECA to make this figure, and I'm pretty sure everyone else did, so here we are. And with that said, let's get into the review. When it comes to the packaging of the figure, we have this nice minimalistic design with the logo of the movie on the front and the side of the box. Going to the back, we have a brief description of what the Feral Predator is all about, followed with some photos of the figure with some of the accessories included. And on the bottom, we have a description of everything that is included with our figure. So flipping the box to the front, we can open it up. We have the figure with what looks like everything included, and everything is there, I can confirm. And then we have a nice large photo of the figure next to him. So let's open up this bad boy and get to reviewing. And starting in the head region of the figure, we can rotate the head 360 degrees, which is always nice to see on these figures. And then separate from the head, we can also rotate the neck 360 degrees, which is really awesome to see here. I will say, granted, most of the time you will be rotating the neck with the head, but it's nice to see that separation there allows for more range and movement. And then going back up to the head, we can see that he can look up and down a decent amount. Very happy with the range here in the figure. And then going back to the neck, it can move back and forth a decent amount as well. So with the head and neck working together, you can have them really look up or down better than most Predator figures, I will say. And then when it comes to the head tilt, it is about the standard range that we see with most Predator figures, which isn't a complaint at all. Very happy with the range there, and overall very happy with the articulation in the head region of the figure. No complaints from me whatsoever. And shifting over to the arms, we can rotate the arms 360 degrees, which is always nice to see on this figure. And then we can bring up the arm a decent amount, which means we can open up the arm a decent amount as well. So very nice to see that here on the figure. And then moving down to the tricep bicep area of the figure, that can be rotated 360 degrees, which is always great to see on this figure as well. And then moving from that area, we have the elbow bend, and as usual, NECA gives us a phenomenal elbow bend. They do with all their figures, so no complaints coming from me here. And then moving down from the elbow, we have the forearm, and the forearm can also be rotated 360 degrees, which is always nice to see. I love me my 360 degree rotations. Then moving from that, we have the hand, which you rotate 360 degrees and bend the wrist however you please. So very happy to see all that here. And taking a look at the torso, we can't get a crunch, but some sort of back and forth movement out of the figure. This is usually what we see with most Predator figures, so it is what it is. And then we can rotate the torso 360 degrees, but we can also rotate the stomach and the chest independently from themselves 360 degrees. So if you wanted to do that, you can. And overall, despite the lack of crunch that we see with most Predator figures, the torso rotation is still there and appreciated nonetheless. And then finally, taking a look at the legs, we can rotate the legs 360 degrees, which is always really nice to see. And then of course we can have our figure do a really good split. We can with most Predator figures, so that is not a shocker here. Allows for a lot of action stances and poses. And then we can bring up the legs so you can have them sit in a chair or off the ledge of a cliff or whatever you want them to sit on. And then when we get to the knee bend, as usual, it's always a really good knee bend from NECA. You can have him do butt kicks and have him, do, again, a bunch of action poses, running poses, anything like that. And then moving down to the feet, we can rotate the feet 360 degrees and kind of get a nice bend out of the wrist however we please. And with that said, very happy with the leg articulation on the figure. Pretty standard, but that's not bad. The standard is really good for NECA. To give my overall thoughts and opinions on the articulation for this figure, and it's that NECA does not miss. Usually when it comes to the articulation for their figures, the head, arms, and leg region of this figure have phenomenal range, and I have no complaints whatsoever. The only thing that I'm iffy about is the torso articulation. I get that it is hard to get down torso articulation on figures, but I really wish that our warrior race figure would be able to do some kind of a crunch so we can get more poses and display poses out of them. I don't know why I had to repeat myself on that, but I do appreciate the rotation in the torso region. I just wish that we got more of a crunch out of them, and after that, that's my only nitpick. After that, everything else feels great articulation wise. So starting off with the swappable bits, we have, of course, swappable hands included with our figure. Our first pair are just open hands. Then we have closed fists, holding hands with a wider grip, holding hands with a tighter grip, and finally we have trigger finger hands. And also included in this figure are swappable mandibles. These are the default kind of closed mouth mandibles included. Then we have these like semi-opened mouth mandibles, and finally we have full open just yelling mandibles. So if you want the feral predator to look really feral, this is how you would do it. When it comes to swapping out the mandibles, it is ridiculously easy. You just pull out whatever mandible is in place and plug the other one in. I will admit that the default mandibles are kind of a hassle to get out. You really got to shake and pull with all your might, but the other ones, they swap in and out really easy. They don't really put up a fight at all, and after that it's just a really simple process, and I actually really like this over the swappable heads. It's just less of a hassle, at least in my opinion, and you also don't have to worry about breaking the ball joint on the neck of the figure. For our first accessory that isn't a swappable part, we have the biomask, and this thing looks amazing. They even detailed the inside. NECA really went all out here, and it just fits like a glove on the feral predator's face. It doesn't feel like it's gonna come off anytime soon, and I am just impressed with how NECA handled this. It looks amazing. And for our next accessory, we have the wrist blades, and these aren't your standard predator wrist blades that you can just push in and out of the gauntlet. You actually have to plug these in. So this is what the blade looks like, and like I said, you just plug it in through the holes on the gauntlet, and it's a very simple process. Just please be very careful, because if you're a dumbass like me, you're going to break the blades. God damn it! But the process is very simple. It's just a peg hole method of plugging the blades in, and once they're in, they're nice and sturdy. They don't feel like they're gonna fall out anytime soon, and it looks really nice. So overall, I can't complain with the visual presentation. And for our next attachable accessory, we do have the shield, and here it is in its collapsed state, and NECA did a phenomenal job at replicating all the line work and the patterns that we see on the shield in the movie. I can't give them enough credit. NECA always makes sure to go the extra mile and get down every little detail they can, and they sure did here. And then here we have the shield fully extended, and oh my god, again, everything I said about it in the collapse state, I mean here as well. I think NECA did a phenomenal job at getting down the appearance of this accessory with all the patterns on each panel, the line work, and having the panels of the shield overlap each other. I think they did such a great job at handling this accessory's visual execution, and I have no complaints about it whatsoever. Good job, NECA, for giving us this phenomenal accessory. And attaching both versions of the shield is fairly simple onto the feral predator. It's just putting the shape into the shape hole, and once it's on, it's fairly secure onto his gauntlet. The only thing that's really gonna knock it off is if you're moving your hands and you're not watching out and you flick off the shield, but after that it's very sturdy. It doesn't feel like it's coming off anytime soon. So overall, very happy with the grip that the shield has on the gauntlet. Some accessories weren't all made equally, and some accessories that I've seen in the past do fall off very easily, but that is not the case here. And then for the final attachable accessory, we do have the backpack. Now this isn't gonna do anything crazy, it's just simply for aesthetics because he does wear it in the movie, so they did have to incorporate it with the figure. And the cool thing about this backpack, instead of using a peg and peg hole system, NECA opted out for magnets, and this is really cool. You can put it on both sides of his back, and the thing is, magnets do cost more, yet NECA did not choose to increase the price of the figure. figure, which I find incredibly based, so thank you for improving the figure while not increasing the price for us. And then for our first handheld accessory, we do have the crossbolt gun, and NECA did such a great job at visually executing this. I love all the line work and the engravings and the patterns that they got down that we see throughout the weapon, and they even got the bolt that is fired from the weapon down. I love that, and just there's so much to appreciate here, and I don't show it in this bit, but later on the video you'll see it, that this weapon actually magnetically attaches to the back of the Feral Predator, just like the backpack, which I thought was a really nice, thing to include, because we do see it on his back in the movie. And then if I were to nitpick this accessory at all, it would be the fact that when you want the Feral Predator to point the weapon forward like he's aiming or shooting at a target, he kind of holds the weapon up a little bit rather than keeping it straight and flat. But after that, that's the only thing I guess I could say I have an issue with. After that, everything else about this accessory is great. And then for our next handheld accessory, we do have the combi stick in its collapsed state, and it looks pretty good. I have no complaints with the visual presentation whatsoever. The line work and the engravings on the handle look great. The blade and the mace side of the weapon does. So yeah, overall great visual presentation of this weapon. The only thing I dislike about the collapsed combi stick is how you display it, because you see these little hooks right here. You're supposed to latch them on to the combi stick, so, and they do fit on nice and secure. They don't feel like they're gonna come off anytime soon, so I do like that about them. But it's attaching to the Feral Predator I have the issue with, because the other side of the hooks you just hook onto his belt, and you're just supposed to kind of like free ball it. Like there's not any like peg holes or anything. You're just supposed to kind of go with your gut here, and I really don't like that about the figure, because it does fall off very easily if you were to knock over your figure, or if you were trying to pose him and your hand accidentally bumps into it, it can just fall off very easily, and I just really don't like this design at all. And here's the combi stick fully extended, and just like the collapsed version, this looks great with all the line work and the paint job. Just overall very happy with the visual execution. And of course we can take this apart like it is in the movie, so you have half of a spear and a mace now for your Feral Predator to dual wield, and how it's taken apart is peg and peg hold. Very simple, nothing over complicated, and overall very happy with the execution of this accessory. So when it comes to the visual presentation of the Feral Predator, there is a lot to love here. As we saw with the accessories of the Feral Predator, NECA does make sure to get every little last detail down, and they did do that with the Feral Predator himself. So there's so much to appreciate about this figure. So let's start with the sculpt work, and let's start in the head region, because there's a lot to digest and break down, because they did a really good job there. The Feral Predator doesn't exactly have the most smoothest skin. It's very coarse, it's very rough looking, and they sure did make that translate onto the figure. He's got a lot of bumps, a lot of wrinkles, a lot of curvature going on in his head, and they translated that perfectly. And because he's snarling and always angry, they got the wrinkles in where his eyebrows would be and where his lips are, and they even got the gummy parts and his teeth down perfectly. Granted, they've been doing Predators for a very long time, so of course they'd have that down by now, but there's just a lot going on in his face, and they sure, translated and sculpted it well. Nothing looks off, nothing looks weird. It looks exactly like how we saw the Feral Predator on screen. And then as for the rest of his body, he doesn't wear a lot of armor, so he's a lot of skin exposed, and again, his skin isn't exactly the smoothest. It looks rough, it looks coarse, and they got down all those bumps that we see on his body. And because he's part of a warrior race, he's very jacked, he's very toned, and they did sculpt his muscles to look so. This figure does look like he can, fold anything that comes his way. And then when it comes to the Feral Predator's apparel, there is a lot to love here as well, especially with the biomask. That was a very, very complicated and busy design with all the different, lines and curves and everything that you would see in a skull. They got down to a T, and it looks phenomenal. And then when it comes to the gauntlets of the Feral Predator, I don't have too much to say. They look great. There's different, it's a very different design than what we're used to seeing for our, Predator gauntlets, but it still looks good all the same. All the different layers and lines and curves that we see are phenomenal. And then getting to the waist piece, there's a lot to take in here. They did include the gadgets that the Feral Predator does have, but they didn't make into toys, so I do enjoy that and appreciate that they at least included these gadgets in some form or shape. And then the actual metal pieces of armor around his waist look really good. I know it's just one big piece of plastic, but it actually looks like individual sheets of metal that kind of layer each other, and it just looks great. The coyote skull looks great. I have no complaints about that, and overall very happy with the waist piece. And then going down to his legs, he does have some wrapping around his ankles, and those look really good as well. It looks like actual, cloth layering itself and not just one hunk of gray or dark brown around his ankles. So overall, with this apparel, the sculpt work looks great. It looks real, it looks authentic. And then when it comes to the paint job of this figure, it looks great. It looks like the Feral Predator. I love the different blend of colors throughout his skin. I really like the pigmentation, and then we get all the spots that we see throughout his body as well. And then when it comes to his apparel, the bone mask has that perfect shade of kind of yellowish tan. I don't know what color to quite call it for what you see on bone. And then the armor, the metals look like metals, the cloths look like cloths, the leather looks like leather, all that jazz. Everything looks like what it's supposed to be made out of, and I just can't complain whatsoever about the paint job of this figure. So with that now all out of the way, let's put this bad boy into scale with some size comparisons. And it turns out the Feral Predator is taller than most Predator figures, seeing that he is taller than the Elder Predator, aka Greyback from Predator 2. The only two figures I know that tower over the Feral are the Armored Assassin and the Stoneheart Predator. Then we have the Aliens Xenomorph Warrior, Jazzwares Halo the Spartan Collection Halo 5 Guardians Master Chief, Jazzwares is the World of Halo Infinite Master Chief, Hasbro Star Wars the Black Series Republic Clone Trooper, and finally we have McFarlane's the Doomslayer. And here we are at the turntable segment of the video. This is pretty much where I go over what I like, dislike, pros, cons, strengths, weaknesses, give my general thoughts and opinions about the figure, and give y'all something to bounce off of and go down in the comment section below and get a conversation started, because obviously I love talking about this stuff. And if you're a reoccurring viewer, you already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to cover the sour stuff first because I don't like dwelling on the negatives longer than I have to. And honestly, only 3 things come to mind, one of them being more of a nitpick if anything, so let me get the 2 actual criticisms out of the way. The first one being the lack of crunch in the torso. I would just like our, super agile warrior, race hunter to be able to do some kind of crunch. It would allow for more poses and more display options, and I think it would just be really neat. But at least it isn't Jazzwares' is the Spartan Collection torso articulation, because that shit sucks. And then the second thing that comes to mind is the balancing on this figure. More times than not, I needed a stand to display the Feral Predator, and as you see throughout the turntable segment, I had to use an action stand at points just to keep him upright, which kind of sucks, because I feel like the action stand is for more poses that require 1 foot or both feet off of the ground, or more bizarre poses. But for some of the more simple poses, I did require an action stand. So something with his balancing is a little bit off for me. I don't know if it's just the sculpt of his feet or whatever, but I did have a hard time keeping him upright at times. And then the third and final issue I have with this figure, that is more so a nitpick, is how the collapsed combi stick is displayed. I really don't like the hook system, because those hooks are very tiny and they can be easily lost, and I rather they just went for a peg and peg hole system. I get that they didn't want to, hence why there were magnets on his back for the bolt gun in the backpack, but for the combi stick, I wish they just made that sacrifice, because I feel like those hooks again can be lost very easily, and the combi stick can fall off of the Feral Predator very easily as well, and you don't want to be losing those hooks unless you're like me and never going to use them and just keep them in the bag that they come in. And then getting into the positives, which outweigh the negatives by a landslide, and there's a lot to love about this figure. Starting off with the visual presentation, to keep it very brief because I have a whole segment praising about how this figure looks. This figure looks great. I have no complaints whatsoever. NECA usually does a phenomenal job at making sure their figures look as lifelike and as accurate to whatever media they are coming from, and that is the case here. So I absolutely love this figure's appearance. And then the accessories, we get a shit ton of accessories, as we should with most Ultimate Predator figures, and I'm very happy with the accessory selection. I know they had to leave out some accessories, and the ones that they left out, I'm actually okay with them leaving out, because at the end of the day, they did at least put them on the belt of the Feral Predator, so they are here in spirit. And then after that, the articulation overall, for the most part, I should say, is really great. Head articulation is great, arm articulation is great, leg articulation is great, and at least you can rotate the torso, because referencing the Spartan collection's shitty torso articulation, you can't move their torsos at all. So at least with the Feral Predator's torso, you can rotate it 360 degrees as a whole, or you can rotate the chest separately from the stomach, so there's at least that silver lining. And then things that really stuck out to me is I really like the swappable mandible system. I know this isn't the first time we've seen it, but I really do enjoy that system. I also really like the magnets on the back of the Feral Predator because it allows for easier, display of weapons and accessories. And it does cost more on NECA's end, but they didn't choose to increase the price of the figure, which I find incredibly based. So yeah, there's a lot to love. This figure looks great. For the most part, it feels great. Comes with a amazing amount of accessories and an amazing choice of accessories. And it does try to be innovative with the magnets and the swappable mandible system, even though that is something we have seen before. So it's not completely innovative. I just know it's a system that NECA doesn't use a lot. They are more prone to go towards the swappable heads, which I'm not complaining. I don't mind the swappable head system, but there are pros and cons for both debates of swappable mandibles and swappable heads. So overall, yeah, I do enjoy this figure. There's a lot to love, a lot to appreciate, and I can't recommend this figure more than I already do. And that's pretty much everything I have to add to this figure. I can't recommend this figure enough, especially if you are collecting Predator figures, because this is the latest Predator in the Predator line. So if you want the latest and greatest Predator figures, this would be the figure to get, unless you're a psychopath and collect Hot Toys, because Hot Toys is doing a Feral Predator figure. I envy you people who dish out that kind of money, because I wish I could. But besides that, if you do have this figure already, what do you like and dislike about this figure? And yeah, let's get that conversation started, and I'll most likely reply to y'all's comments, because obviously I love talking about this stuff. And let's move on to the outro. So if you did enjoy today's video, a like and a subscription would be phenomenal, and don't worry about commenting. I get it, it's a lot of effort moving those fingers, but if you do want to bounce off anything I did say during the video, you're more than welcome to. I'll most likely reply to y'all's comments, because obviously I love talking about this stuff. And don't worry about the bell, we both know that shit is broken. And if you want to see more content like this, there's plenty of it up on the channel. I've reviewed a ton of NECA stuff in the realm of the Predator and Alien franchise, and then I also do Star Wars and Halo stuff as well. So if any of that does interest you, you're more than welcome to go check it out. And with all that said, please have a nice day and stay hydrated. It's important.